On my way home from my part-time job, I was attacked with a baseball bat and broke my arm. Despite being hospitalized due to overwork and a fever, I couldn't get in touch with my husband, John. I finally managed to call his workplace. "Hello, I'm Anne. My husband is John Smith who works at your company. Could you put me through to him?" I pleaded desperately, but the woman on the other end responded in a puzzled voice.
"There's no one here by that name."
"What do you mean?" I asked in a trembling voice. After speaking with the woman further, I learned that she was John's actual wife, Emma. I'd been deceived by John the whole time.
"Hey, Anne, who do you think is responsible for your broken arm?"
Who?
"I don't think it's directly this person's fault. I have an idea. Could you hold off on telling the cops about this person and leave things to me for a bit?"
I decided to trust Emma's words. "My name is Ann Smith, and I'm 27 years old. I've been a part-time homemaker for 5 years. My husband, John, is 37, 10 years older and very reliable. John is a lawyer, which makes his job so busy that he often doesn't come home. I married John right after I graduated from college at 22. My parents were against my marrying him since I'd been dating him throughout college. They told me I was too young, that I should gain some professional experience, and that I was being deceived by a man 10 years older. Shocked by their words, I ran straight to John. He welcomed me into his apartment, and we married soon after. We didn't even have a wedding ceremony. John assured me we'd have one eventually, so we haven't even taken any photos yet. I've been working part-time while waiting for John at our place. John is really busy. Hey, do you have a lot of overnight business trips?" I feel like I've been asking him this since we got married.
Yes, I do. Being a lawyer is really hectic. You're young and naive, so you might not understand. But when clients are far away, I often have to travel.
John often told me stories about clients who rely on him even from far away. Naively, I just believed him. I'm not one to overthink things. So when I liked John, I was all in. His line of work is something I'd never be involved with, so I just listened in amazement. Lately, though, there are more days when he doesn't come home, which probably means he's a competent lawyer, but I can't help feeling lonely. I'm the type who wants to be near someone I care about. I was always with friends back in college, joining clubs and parties. I sometimes reminisce about those fun times. Being an only child, my parents showered me with love, which made it even harder to ignore their objections and marry John. So now that I'm feeling lonely, I can't bring myself to ask my parents for help. To distract myself, I often volunteered for extra shifts and overtime to keep my time alone to a minimum. Hey, are you not coming home again today? Sometimes I can't bear it and call John.
You know I've got work. Stop being selfish.
He replied like that. Unable to hold it in, I would leave him messages saying how lonely I was, begging him to come home early, and asking when he'd be back so I could cook his favorite meal.
Stop that. It interferes with my work.
That's what he'd respond with. Is this just how guys are? Lately, John only comes home once a week. No, maybe every 2 weeks. I'm incredibly lonely. When I finally return home from my part-time job, I do the household chores with my exhausted body and then sleep. This has been my routine for some time now. What happened to John? He wasn't this busy back when we were dating. I wish he would be by my side more. But no matter how much I long for it, if John rejects my calls and messages, I have no choice but to bear it. Unless something really urgent happens. Then one day, I was working overtime as usual and got home late. Our apartment is about a 10-minute walk from the nearest station. It's in a residential area, but some streetlights are missing here and there, which can be a bit scary. In places where houses have been demolished, leaving for sale signs, it's like darkness and frightening. A sense of dread about what might suddenly appear wells up inside me. That's why, when I approach those areas, I always jog a little. I'm even thinking about buying a bicycle. You never know when something might happen. And on this day, that something did happen. When I checked the time leaving the station, it was already past 10 p.m. I was particularly tired that day. I work in the office of a factory, but sometimes when things get busy, I help out in the warehouse. When that happens, it's often physically demanding. Today, there was a report that the ordered products were wrong, so I went to the warehouse to check the inventory, repeatedly loading and unloading several boxes. I was also running around everywhere, coordinating with people out in the field. As a result, my feet and body were completely exhausted. I found myself dragging my heavy feet. That's when I sensed something. I felt a presence behind me. When I stopped, someone stopped. When I started walking, someone moved too. After repeating this a few times, I realized I was being followed. I have to escape. But my legs were too heavy and wouldn't move well. I tried to run, but my fatigued legs wouldn't carry me forward properly. Noticing my movements, the person following me ran toward me. Startled, I turned around. A small figure was raising something at me. I'm going to get hit. I instinctively protected my head with my left arm. Bang! A massive shock and pain shot through my elbow. I looked to see a bat striking my arm forcefully. I lost my balance and fell. My back fell with me. The person tried to hit me again. What should I do? I can't afford to get hit repeatedly with something like this. In my panic, I reached for my smartphone, which had fallen out of my bag. In a blind frenzy, I pressed the camera shutter. The flash pierced into the attacker's eyes. With the lock screen on, only the flashlight and camera could respond immediately, but at that moment, I didn't care which one. I was desperate to blind the attacker for just a moment, frantically pressing my finger on the button. That's when I realized the person was a woman. No, I had a hunch. As she approached, a faint scent wafted over. It seemed to be her shampoo mixed with a familiar smell. The same scent as John. I muttered almost unconsciously. She threw down her bat and quickly ran away. The bat clanged as it rolled away. I stayed crouched there for a while, unable to move. Not only that, but my arm, which she hit, hurt terribly. Realizing this was serious, I fiddled with my phone and called the police in a shaky voice. I sat slumped on the ground until a police car and ambulance arrived. The police must have assessed the situation because they called for an ambulance as well. When the doctor at the hospital examined me, he said with a troubled look,
"This is a pretty clear fracture."
"A fracture?" I was shocked. Was I hit that hard?
Yes, normally it would have been just a crack, but it seems like you're a bit malnourished. Your bones look a little weak. Make sure to get enough calcium and sunlight.
The pain gradually got worse, so I got a shot of painkillers. Well, is it still okay to go to work? I'm in administration.
If we cast and immobilize it, you should be fine. However, you likely develop a fever, so would you like to stay overnight?
Please. I decided to stay in the hospital. Given the time, I was honestly scared to go home alone. The next morning, I explained the situation to my company and requested 3 days off.
Oh my God, you've really been through it. If you're hospitalized for that, it's understandable. Take care.
My boss was surprised, but after I explained what had happened and my condition, he graciously approved my sudden time off. However, perhaps due to accumulated fatigue, the fever that had come on didn't go down easily, and I ended up staying in the hospital for 4 days. I managed to inform John by phone.
Attacked on the way home and hit. I'd love to come right over, but I'm swamped at work right now. You'll have to manage alone.
John snapped impatiently. He seemed ready to hang up, so I clung desperately to the conversation. So when are you coming back? At least tell me that.
Don't be ridiculous. I won't know until this is solved. Anyway, I'm really busy now. I'm hanging up. Don't keep messaging me.
The call ended before I could say anything more. Lying in my hospital bed, sweating with a rising fever, I kept wondering why John was so busy. When my fever started to go down, I finally decided to contact the law firm where John worked. My altered condition must have driven me to such an idea. Even though my fever had subsided somewhat, I was still feeling the effects. But I didn't know the firm's phone number. So I searched for the name of the firm I heard about while we were dating and managed to find it. When I called, I heard a woman's voice.
Hello? Thank you for calling Smith Law Firm.
Hello, I'm Anne. My husband is John Smith, who works at your company. Could you put me through to him? I asked desperately, but the woman on the phone replied with a puzzled tone.
I'm sorry. There is no such person.
What? What do you mean? I continued, my voice trembling. I'm talking about John Smith. I'm his wife, Anne. The woman on the other end of the phone said in a somewhat low voice.
Let's talk later. I'm Emma Smith. Could you please give me your phone number so I can call you back?
It struck me as curious that she also had the Smith surname, but her calm voice made me respond without hesitation. And then 15 minutes later, she called me again.
Hello, you said your name is Anne Smith.
Yes, I'm John Smith's wife.
Excuse me, but what's the name on your driver's license?
Amy abruptly interrupted. The name on my driver's license.
Yes, please tell me the name on license you have.
Puzzled, I took out my license that I had just used recently. It's M. Williams.
Oh, I see.
Emma sighed deeply.
Anne, listen carefully, okay? Like I said earlier, I'm Emma Smith, John Smith's wife. I'm his real wife.
What do you mean? I reflexively asked, forgetting what she had said earlier.
Calm down, Anne. First, I'd like to hear why you went out of your way to call this place. What exactly happened?
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 nights ago, on my way home from work, I was attacked by a stranger with a bat and broke my arm.
A stranger?
I heard her gasp on the other end. I've got a fever now, so I'm in the hospital. I'm sorry. I think your husband and mine just have the same name. I'm really sorry for causing this confusion.
No, it's okay. But is your arm going to be all right?
My doctor said I'll be fine if it's immobilized for a while. But I'm in the hospital because I have a fever from the injury and some exhaustion. Emma didn't interrupt and calmly responded to everything I said.
Oh, no? The exhaustion must have caught up with you. But listen, and that name on your driver's license, Ann Williams, that's your real name.
What? I reflexively asked back. I didn't understand what Emma was saying.
Hey, Ann, I'd like to talk with you after you get out of the hospital. I'd also like to look into some things, so let's meet on your day off. My number should show up on your phone. This is my personal number, so call me if anything comes up.
Emma said this before hanging up. I couldn't comprehend what I had just been told. Driver's license. What does that mean? After graduating college and getting married, John said I could continue using this name, so I just went along with it. But then why? A week later, I met Emma at the hospital while getting a checkup. I had unexpectedly gotten some time off. I told the office I was out of the hospital, but my boss said, looking a little concerned,
You always work so diligently, so think about your health once in a while. And I'm sorry we have you, a part-timer, working late into the night. We got you home late, and that's why this happened.
It was painful to think I'd made everyone worry. No, it's my fault for insisting on working so much. I apologize if my absence disrupts anything.
You're very honest, which is good, but you're also a bit reckless sometimes.
Ann's a good person, but she makes me worry sometimes.
Even my coworkers said things like that. So I decided to take 10 days off. Though it's mainly an administrative job, it still requires frequent use of my arms. Productivity would drop if I tried to protect my arm constantly. Besides, I'd accumulated quite a bit of paid leave. It was as good a time as any to use it up. When I informed Emma about it, she arranged to meet me at the hospital. We drove in Emma's car from the hospital to a cafe to discuss the matter. Inside, each table was partitioned, so even if we spoke a little louder, our conversation wouldn't carry too far. Emma began speaking.
Let me introduce myself again. I'm Emma, John Smith's wife, and we've been married for 10 years. I also work as a lawyer in the same office as him. You called yourself John's wife, but you're not officially married to him.
After saying that, Emma placed her phone in front of me, showing a wedding photo and a copy of their marriage certificate. The reality she had mentioned on the phone, which I had unconsciously stopped thinking about, was now right in front of me. I felt dizzy.
Hold on, please listen carefully.
Emma said with a serious expression, Yes.
I've suspected John of cheating for a while and tried to catch him, but he's in the same field as I am and hasn't slipped up.
If I'm not legally married to John, then I must be the other woman. That realization hit me like a ton of bricks. So, when he only comes back every week or two, he's actually returning your home?
Yes, John travels often and is frequently away for business. He rarely comes back to our home either.
But why is that? I thought I was married to John all this time. Emma sighed deeply.
And how old are you now? How many years ago did you think you got married?
My age? I'm 27. I thought we got married 5 years ago when I was 22, right after I graduated from college.
You were young. You're working part-time now, right? That must be tough.
Though unsure of her intention, I nodded. Like I said on the phone, I took some paid time off.
No, that's not the point. The tough part is that John manipulated you into believing his words while you had little life experience. You fell for his smooth talk.
I was shocked that Emma criticized John so bluntly. Smooth talk.
Didn't it strike you as odd that you could use your driver's license? Do you have it with you now?
Following her instructions, I pulled out my driver's license from my wallet. Emma examined it and muttered, "I knew it."
You've been keeping your maiden name?
What? But I've been able to use it. Is there an issue?
Of course, it's valid. You haven't submitted your marriage certificate, and your last name hasn't changed. And from my perspective, you're John's mistress.
Not officially married to John. My head was spinning as the truth set in. Emma reached out and held my hand, reassuring me. Oddly enough, I felt no anger towards her. No, it was more like none of this felt real.
It's tragic how you got tricked by John. But honestly, Han, you were a blind spot for me.
A blind spot.
The person I suspected of cheating with John was this woman.
Emma showed me a photo of a woman, and my gaze was instantly drawn to it. This woman.
You know her?
I gasped, pulled out my phone, and opened my photo album. There it is. I showed Emma a photo. This is the woman who hit me with the bat. In the picture was a woman wearing a bomber jacket, holding a bat. She was the same person as in the photo Emma had shown me.
Nice work, Anne. Have you shown this to the police yet?
No, I just realized it now. I'm really slow to notice these things. Emma smiled wryly at my comment and looked down briefly.
Just a moment,
she said, then paused to think. After a moment, she looked up and asked,
Anne, who do you think is responsible for what happened to your arm?
That person, I guess.
But I don't think she's the real cause. So, before we talk to the police about her, could you let me handle this a bit?
I nodded silently. I felt helpless and thought I had no choice but to rely on her. A week later, John finally came home. Welcome back. That was a long business trip. I missed you. As I greeted John and hugged him, my arm cast bumped against his chest.
Oh, you okay with your broken arm?
It wasn't okay. I thought about contacting you so many times. I tried to send messages, but I followed your instructions not to. Actually, I was hit with a bat. I stepped back from John as I spoke. But it's okay now. I went to the hospital by ambulance and got it checked out. I deliberately didn't mention the police. By the way, I have friends visiting today.
New friends? That's unusual. Is it someone from work?
No, they are new friends I made recently. Come, I want you to meet them. Smiling, I took his hand and led him to the living room. As I opened the door, two women sitting on the sofa watching TV turned around. Everyone, John is back.
Hey, welcome back, John.
So, you've come back here too, right?
Emma and Nancy, why are you two together?
One was Emma and the other was Nancy, another woman John had cheated with, who had attacked me. Sit down, please. I pushed a stunned John towards them with my good hand. They forced him into a seat from both sides.
What are you two doing here?
Why? Because we've become good friends.
Nancy's comment made all three of us chuckle.
Look, John, you told me that your wife always belittled you at the office and at home, and you wanted to hit her. So, I want to teach her a lesson, you know? What? This N isn't your wife, right? I got it wrong and broke her arm. It's your fault.
What? You broke Anne's arm, Nancy.
So I thought I'd go to your wife's place, followed you home from our place, and attack the woman living there. But it was big mistake.
That's right. Nancy was the person who had attacked me. Emma had directly visited Nancy once she had figured out who she was to explain what happened and asked for her cooperation. In return, she would also defend me in the assault case.
I didn't ask for that. Really, Nancy, did you do it? Hit Anne with a bat.
Not asked for? Didn't you think I would do something like that? But now, I really want to hit you.
Nancy smirked and repeatedly hit her right fist into her left palm.
Wait, why me?
Are you stupid? Even if I'm a mess, you think I'd cling to a guy who was seeing three of us? I can't believe I fell for such a guy. Makes me feel so stupid.
Nancy spoke candidly to John, and then I thought to myself, I was really a fool too. I was simply someone John kept around, yet I convinced myself I was his wife, believing only his words that he had filed our marriage certificate. Looking back, I had only signed it. I had left the filing to him. Why hadn't John suggested we file it together? It was obvious. He couldn't file it, and that's why we didn't go together. I ignored reality, preferring to hold on to the dream of being married to him. I didn't care that I didn't have a marriage certificate.
But this is...
We don't care about your excuses.
Emma's firm voice cut through as John stood trembling, facing an increasingly agitated Nancy.
With Anne's discovery, we now have all the evidence of your infidelity. I've already told my father everything.
My father-in-law.
John's face turned pale. The man was clearly significant in his life.
Yes, I presented all the evidence to my father, who had mistakenly trusted you and taken you as his son-in-law. He transferred the rights of the firm to me. So, as the new CEO, here's my first decision. John, you're leaving the firm, and I'll also report your actions to the Bar Association.
What?
Yes, that's my father's firm. You joined as his son-in-law and became the next director, but letting someone with questionable ethics continue would be a credibility issue for our firm. My father wouldn't allow me to remain with someone like you. So, you're going to sign this too?
Emma took out a divorce paper and stamped it down on the table. Seeing it, I spoke up too. John, you didn't even file our marriage certificate. John looked up at me, sweat pouring from his forehead.
But you never asked about it.
So you think it's okay to deceive young women? Emma, isn't he in the legal profession?
Yes, and it's embarrassing as a fellow professional.
Watching John squirm in front of these two, I felt a pang of shame. Not just for him, but for myself too. How could I have spent every day agonizing over such a person, just waiting patiently? As these thoughts crossed my mind, I heard Nancy's voice.
Hey Emma, mind if I land one on him?
What should we do? If you hurt anyone else, your charges will just pile up.
That's fine. You're gonna defend me to the fullest, right?
Emma flashed a smile.
Sure, why not?
Then she stepped away from the two.
All right.
Stop it.
Do you think I'd hit you?
Nancy swiftly took something out of her bag. A red and yellow canned good that looked a little bloated. Emma then quietly approached and whispered to me.
And as soon as Nancy throws that at John, we leave the house.
What? As we exchanged those words, Nancy advanced towards John.
Thanks for everything. This is my way of repaying you.
Nancy threw the bloated can as hard as she could. It smacked against John with a dull thud and fell to the ground.
Let's go,
Emma ordered. We swiftly opened the living room door and headed for the front entrance. As we stepped out and closed the door, a loud scream echoed from inside.
Oh no.
Close the door now.
The urgency in Emma's voice was clear. What exactly had Nancy thrown at John?
Wow, it worked. Totally worth the $65.
$65 for that can. Emma couldn't stop herself from laughing loudly too.
Yeah, it costs that much because it's surströmming.
Nancy added, noticing my confusion.
People call it the world's smelliest canned food. It ferments at room temperature, which is why it bloats like that and eventually explodes. I always wanted to try it once. Never thought I'd throw it at him, though.
And you made sure to leave it out at room temperature so it would explode, right?
Amy asked through her laughter.
That's why I told Anne to send her things to her family or somewhere else in advance. This place will probably be unusable for a month.
Unusable? As soon as I heard that word, I couldn't help but laugh from the pit of my stomach. The image of John, who always tried to act cool, flashed in and out of my mind.
All right, Emma, I'm gonna turn myself in. Come with me.
Of course, whether you'll be charged or not is up for discussion, so Anne, you'll come too.
Wait a minute. I asked the two to step back from the door a little.
What are you doing?
I took a deep breath, flung open the door, and shouted. It stinks. What's that smell? I won't live in this place anymore, and I'm never coming back. You've been lying to me this whole time, and I hate you. Slamming the door shut. My eyes watered from the strong smell leaking out. I coughed but laughed until tears ran down my cheeks. The three of us quickly headed to the police station. Still, I had already decided to settle. After all, Nancy was one of the victims of John's lies. I also felt a strange kinship with her for the way she acted toward the person who hit me with a bat. Maybe it sounds too naive. It's true. And I'm naive and too trusting, making me appear foolish. But right now, I feel a strong sense of solidarity with those who were deceived by the same man. And Nancy's way of getting revenge on John was just too funny. After hearing the story from Emma, she immediately apologized to me and promised to cover my medical expenses fully. Emma wouldn't charge us either. It was clear that I had been completely deceived, believing John's lies about being married and not knowing about his family.
Basically, he just liked young women.
Emma said after everything was settled.
You started dating him in college, right? Did John offer to pay for things?
No, I thought it was real love. I really cared about him.
He probably exploited that.
She sighed again.
Still, being married to a guy like that was a mistake itself.
By the way, the can exploded in that room, leaving behind a horrendous smell that kept John from appearing in public for a while. Of course, the room he had used to keep me locked up was rendered uninhabitable too. Emma later told me that even cleaning the place required a special crew and was very expensive. On top of that, she filed for divorce and demanded substantial compensation for his infidelity. And then there was the issue with the bar association that John let slip when Emma fired him. Reporting his actions to the association got him erased from their directory. I don't fully understand the details, but apparently lawyers can't work unless they're in the bar association. How will John manage these huge payments? It's not my concern, but losing the hard-earned license that must have taken so much effort to obtain, could John really be even dumber than me? Either way, the cost of what John did to us 3 women is high. I hope he learns his lesson. I returned home and am now preparing to find a new job once my arm heals. I quit my part-time job of 5 years to move back my parents' home after this ordeal. When I went to send my things to my parents' house, Emma came along to speak to my parents. She even connected me with some nearby law firms for potential job opportunities. So, I'm now preparing for job hunting. Incidentally, my parents had a rough idea of where I was and how I was living. All the official documents were delivered to my parents' address. They also received a notice of medical expenses, and my parents seemed to be worried about me. They were relieved to know that I hadn't suffered any major illnesses or injuries and hadn't had any children. In short, my parents were patiently waiting for me to wake up on my own. I really was naive. By the way, Emma, Nancy, and I created an online group to exchange messages. We also plan to celebrate with a dinner together once I find a new job. At that time, we intend to share a good laugh about John's current situation. Although I wasted 5 years of my 20s, I'm now determined to face my own weaknesses and become self-sufficient.